Entire cities can disappear beneath water in just minutes, long before the hurricane's winds even arrive. Most people fear the storm itself, but the real killer is the invisible force rising from the ocean. And the terrifying truth is that storm surges are becoming stronger, higher, and faster than ever recorded. Storm surge, two simple words that fail to capture the extraordinary power behind them. When most people think of hurricanes, they picture swirling clouds, violent winds, or roofs being torn apart. Yet time and time again, the deadliest part of a storm isn't what happens in the sky, it's what rises from below. Storm surges have wiped entire towns off the map, reshaped coastlines, and turned streets into raging rivers capable of lifting homes off their foundations. But what exactly is a storm surge? Why does it happen? And how is it possible for a wall of water to sweep through a city so quickly that people have no time to escape? To understand the destruction, we must start at the source, the ocean. A hurricane is essentially a massive rotating engine that feeds on warm seawater. As it intensifies, the storm pulls huge amounts of water upward, creating lower pressure at the sea surface. Because nature hates imbalance, water rushes toward this low-pressure zone, causing the sea level to rise beneath the storm. This rise alone can reach several feet. But that's only the beginning. As the storm moves, fierce winds shove this elevated water toward the coast. Imagine millions of tons of ocean being pushed by winds stronger than those of a Category 4 hurricane. Winds capable of uprooting trees, ripping apart buildings, and bending steel structures. Now imagine that same force applied to water, which is far heavier than air. This wind-driven surge piles up higher and higher, forming a massive dome of water that travels with the storm like a deadly shadow. When the storm makes landfall, this dome crashes into the coastline. In some cases, it arrives as a slow and relentless rise that fills streets like a flowing tide. In others, it appears as a sudden tsunami-like wave that sweeps away everything in its path. Entire neighborhoods vanish under the force. Cars float like toys. Boats end up on highways. Bridges collapse. Power stations short-circuit. Emergency services become paralyzed. People who thought they could ride out the storm find themselves trapped in attics or clinging to rooftops. The damage isn't just physical, it's psychological. Survivors describe the sound of a storm surge as something between a freight train and an earthquake. The ground shakes, buildings crack, the ocean roars louder than thunder. And once the water enters a city, it doesn't just pass through, it tears structures apart from the inside, splintering walls and ripping floors away. But why are storm surges so much more destructive today than they were decades ago? The key lies in a combination of environmental and human factors that amplify the danger. First, sea levels are rising. Even a small increase makes a massive difference. A storm surge that might have stopped at the beach 50 years ago can now reach deep into coastal towns. Higher sea levels mean the storm starts with a head start, allowing water to travel farther inland with less effort. Second, coastal erosion weakens natural barriers. Wetlands, mangroves, dunes, and coral reefs once acted as buffers that absorbed storm energy. But urban development has replaced many of these natural shields with concrete, and concrete does not soften the blow. When a surge hits a heavily developed coastline, it strikes with full force. Third, storms themselves are growing stronger. Warmer oceans provide more fuel for hurricanes, leading to rapid intensification events where storms jump from a Category 1 to a Category 4 in less than a day. Stronger storms mean more wind energy and higher surges. Today, hurricanes can produce surges exceeding 20 feet, enough to drown a two-story building. But there is a deeper, more technical reason why storm surges are so dangerous: geography. Certain coastlines, like those along the Gulf of Mexico, are shaped like funnels. These natural formations trap incoming water and push it upward. The shallow seabed also contributes. When storm-driven water approaches a shallow coastline, it has nowhere to go but upward, increasing the surge height dramatically. This is why cities like New Orleans, Houston, Tampa, Miami, Dhaka, and Manila face catastrophic risk. Their topography, combined with dense populations, makes them storm surge hotspots. Another factor is timing, the role of the tide. A storm surge that hits during high tide can be far worse than one that arrives at low tide. When both combine, the result is what meteorologists call storm tide, which can be feet higher than the surge alone. In the worst cases, this leads to devastation on a scale that feels almost apocalyptic. History offers painful proof. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina produced a storm surge that exceeded 25 feet along parts of the Gulf Coast. Entire communities in Mississippi were obliterated. In 2013, Super Typhoon Haiyan generated a surge so massive that coastal villages in the Philippines were washed away in seconds. Witnesses described walls of water higher than palm trees, moving like a high-speed train. In 2022, Hurricane Ian submerged parts of Florida's west coast under a surge so powerful it picked up houses and carried them inland like floating rafts. And yet, despite all of this destruction, one of the most dangerous misconceptions persists. People underestimate storm surge. They prepare for the wind, not the water. They look at hurricane categories based on wind speed and assume they can judge the storm's danger. But a Category 2 hurricane can produce a worse surge than a Category 4, depending on its size, angle, and speed. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale does not measure flooding. It does not measure rainfall. It does not measure surge. That means millions of people make evacuation decisions without understanding the real risk. They think a Category 1 storm sounds harmless. They think the surge will be a slow flood they can escape. They think their car can handle a foot or two of water. These assumptions are deadly. In reality, 6 inches of moving water can knock an adult off their feet. 1 foot of flowing water can sweep away a car. 3 feet can lift and push an SUV like a cardboard box. Once the surge arrives, escape becomes nearly impossible. Roads disappear, landmarks vanish, power lines fall, debris turns into underwater hazards. For many victims, disaster strikes not because they ignored warnings, but because they misunderstood the warnings they received. So what can cities do to protect themselves? Some places have already learned from past devastation. The Netherlands, for example, has built one of the most advanced flood defense systems in the world. Massive sea walls, storm surge barriers, floating buildings, and reinforced levees protect low-lying communities. Japan uses deep coastal forests as natural buffers. Bangladesh has invested in elevated shelters that can hold thousands of people above surge levels. But even with engineering marvels, no system is perfect. The ocean always finds a weakness. Urban planning must evolve. Cities need stricter building codes, elevated structures, improved drainage systems, and smarter evacuation routes. Coastal wetlands must be restored as natural defenses. Most importantly, communication must improve. People need simple, clear information explaining when to evacuate, where to go, and what to expect. Storm surges are especially dangerous in the age of climate change. As the planet warms, seas rise. As seas rise, surges worsen. As surges worsen, more people living near the coast face deadly risk. Nearly 600 million people worldwide reside in low-lying coastal regions. By 2050, that number could surpass 1 billion. This means storm surges are not just a meteorological problem or a coastal problem. They are a global humanitarian challenge. Yet despite the increasing danger, the world has an opportunity to understand. When people truly understand storm surges, how they form, how fast they move, how high they rise, they make better decisions. They evacuate earlier. They protect their homes. They push for better infrastructure. Knowledge is one of the few defenses humanity has against the rising tides. The next time a storm approaches, don't focus only on the wind speed. Look at the surge forecast. Look at the tide schedule. Look at your city's elevation map. Know how fast water can travel in your area. If emergency officials advise evacuation, take it seriously. Property can be repaired. Lives cannot be replaced. Storm surges may be among the most destructive natural forces on Earth, but they are not unstoppable. Preparedness, awareness, engineering, and science can turn the tide, literally and figuratively. Communities that respect the power of the ocean stand a far better chance of surviving its fury. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, please subscribe to Crisis Lens, hit the like button, and share this video so more people can understand the science and danger behind storm surges and stay safe when disaster strikes.